Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2022 Widthwise Roundtable discussion on the state of the UK's large format digital print sector. At the start of 2022, Image Reports conducted what was its 15th annual Widthwise survey of domestic PSPs operating in the wide format print space. 201 companies responded to that, allowing us to produce a Widthwise report that provided a real grassroots snapshot of how the sector was performing and feeling. At that time, things were looking quite positive. Almost 3/4 of those polled said they were optimistic about their businesses over the next couple of years, even though half had seen a drop in turnover in 21 and 40% had suffered a drop in margin. Maybe the optimism had something to do with the fact that 2/3 said they expected the UK's wide format print market to grow in 22-23. But time has marched on, and I'm really pleased that we've managed to get such a cross-section of print providers to talk today about some of the key trends and issues that the poll flagged up, to see if much has changed, what it's like doing business in today's landscape, and how we think the sector will fare as we move forward. So hello, gentlemen and lady. I'm going to ask each of you first just to introduce yourself, if that's okay, just in case no one watching should recognise any of you. So if you can kick off, Nicole, please.
Hi, I'm Nicole Spencer. I'm the Managing Director of RMC Digital Print. We're a wide format trade-only company that specialise in printing for signage and exhibition companies mostly. Turnovers between 2.5 to 3 million, and we currently sit at around 23 employees.
Graham.
Hi, my name's Graham from KGK Genics. I'm the Managing Director. We're a growing design and large format print provider. We have 60 staff based in production centres in Hertfordshire and Essex, and our central London office. The business has been established for 30 years and operates mainly within the retail, exhibition, events and office and commercial sectors. And we're on target for 9 million turnover this year.
Thank you. Anthony.
Hello, I'm Anthony Ryder. I'm Sales Director of Rocket Graphics. We're based in Watford. We have approximately just over 50 employees. We're on target this year for a turnover of 9.5 million, operating predominantly in the event and experiential market.
Thank you. Mark?
Hello, I'm Mark Baker, the small fry of the bunch. We're a company based in Norwich, been going 22 years, predominantly a sign company. But we wide format print for exhibition and events companies, main specialities, vehicle graphics and wraps, office interiors, that kind of thing. So we're spread quite across the board. Team of 24, turnover about 1.5 million.
Thank you. Simon.
Hi, Simon Wheeler. I'm the Operations Director at Stylo. We're based in Watford, 72 staff at the moment. We work we don't work mostly. We work in the retail, food and beverage areas, a little bit of film and TV, and a few other supporting sectors.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask a number of questions, obviously, as I mentioned earlier. So I'll just go around you one by one, asking for your feedback on each of those questions, if that's okay. I'll try and mix it up a bit so we're not always starting with Nicole, who's at the top of the screen there. But that's what I'll do for now. So the first question, now, have things changed for the better or the worse in your own business since the start of this year? And what have been the most major impacts on your own company? Nicole, can we start with you, please?
Well, since the start of this year, we've had quite a lot of change within the business because we've taken out one of our 5-metre printers. In fact, a new one arrived yesterday. So that impacts us in terms of we're not able to do as much work while that's been going on. Also cost-wise, because you've got to raise another deposit, you need to put all the electrics in, new compressor, all those kind of things. And also we had a better year turnover-wise last year, like year on year, than this year, but because we were involved in quite a big rollout last year. So for us, sometimes, because we're a trade company, we don't always know what's coming up. It's very, very difficult for us to predict what's going to happen. So we've just got to kind of plan for both best and worst case scenarios, and then hopefully we'll fall somewhere in between. I think for us, the drop in turnover is mostly because we did have a big project last year and we haven't got that project this year. And retailers, I think, are a little bit hesitant to be going forward with major rebrands at the moment, which, understandably, looking at the economy.
Yeah. Graham, how's it been for you?
Since the start of 2022, our business has sort of boomed considerably for us. 80% of our clients are retailers, so having no restrictions has been positive. I think footfall has increased, and our client surveys and our own indicate that there's still a desire to spend in physical retail rather than just online. So whilst the cost of living crisis is definitely a concern, our early signs are showing that customer spend isn't on the decline, and you could argue that in some cases some retailers might actually increase their spend in an attempt to gain market share in sort of difficult times. So yeah, given that many of our retailer clients entrust us with looking after their flagship stores, we're still confident that the spend in this area will be relatively stable.
Anthony, how are you feeling?
Well, obviously last year was COVID affected, as was Q1 of this year. From that, then we suddenly found that the taps turned on again. Not only was scheduled work on, but there was catch up. There were events that had been delayed from last year and the Q1 of this year and moved into sort of Q2, Q3 and Q4 of this year. So it's been like night and day last year and this year. So very much catch up as well. So it's been a very good year for us. Also, with obviously coming off furlough, re-employing, taking on staff, thinking about investment as well, sorting out debt that may have accrued from furlough grants or whatever, government grants. So it's been a really a year of restabilizing the business as such. And I think moving forward, obviously with current just politics of the last few weeks, yes, our views on, yes, we are reinvesting now, but we're just very cautious at the moment what's going on. Obviously others will probably echo that. But generally, yes, a good year, recovery year for us.
Okay. Mark, what's it been like over your end?
Sure. So yeah, we feel quite fortunate. We were lucky through COVID and got a lot of good work. And then, since then, we've found a lot of people very positive. A lot of our customers have been very positive and pushing forward. I think the freedom made everyone sort of enjoy pressing on. So, because our markets are so spread, we've just had a huge influx of things like vehicle graphics. But lots of the retailers have been taking on other stores too. So, again, smaller than what some of you guys will be looking after, but we're still finding people are opening up and progressing. So that's been really, really good. So we didn't expect this year to start as it has, but it's been very, very buoyant. Same as you guys probably felt when everything started to wobble, maybe sort of August, September time, the phones were a little bit quieter. But, so we've got a few little storms ahead, I feel. But as far as this year as a whole, it's been our biggest since our incorporation. So we can't complain.
Simon, what's impacted your situation?
I think any business that's come through COVID and come out the other side is bound to be a bit stronger. I think we've all looked at our own businesses. We've looked at how to organise, how to, to be a bit tighter in what we're producing. Power and energy currently is a big topic and is going to have an effect on anyone changing, coming out of a fixed rate. As we've seen recently, and that's an area that's going to affect margin. But with that negative side, you look at the positives. We've moved into new areas. We're looking at investing in toe dipping type new services that are help the most profitable parts of the business. And I think generally outlook is good. Just tainted with a bit of what's going on in the world, which we can't really have too much effect on, other than canvassing our own MPs, etc.
Well, talking about profitability, I mean, what do you think needs to happen or change to increase your profitability, whether that be internally or externally? What are your biggest worries now, I think, and what can be done on an individual company basis or an industry-wide level to improve things, do you think? I might as well start with you, Simon, because you were sort of taught on that anyway.
As far as the effect we can have on world politics, not too much. More generally, closer to home, canvassing MPs on what's going on in business day to day. Fortunately, Rocket and ourselves, we have an MP that's quite useful in as far as he's on the front bench now. So it's a good option for us to use that. But other than that, we just really look for where the margin is best and invest in that area to ensure that we're doing right by our business and making sure whilst we've got the less profitable sides, that we're increasing our investment on the more profitable areas.
What's your thinking, Anthony, in terms of profitability? Is it a situation of going into markets where you can just see higher margin? What's your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally the market we're in is very time driven, service driven. Price tends to, with some of our clients, is secondary in a way, and that's what we're cultivating. I think what we've tried to do is cultivate relationships, as all our businesses do here. We garner clients that are loyal to us and want to work with us almost ongoing, and almost will give us a pipeline. That's manna from heaven at the moment. So I think, yes, we're looking at the machines that we can run efficiently. Obviously, yes, energy. I mean, fortunately, we've actually capped out energy for the next 3 years, which is good. So I'm going to worry on that issue. But yes, what is worrying every week, we're getting price increases on media. Obviously, plastics, importation, whatever, it's going up. So there is pressure, and I think it's maintaining our service so that we can deliver at a price to our clients that's justifiable, so that we're not trying to slash prices here and there. We've never been in the market to on this competitive tender side where it's lowest price wins, and there's a danger there that businesses get sucked into that, I think, where margins are so low that if a job does go some wrong or becomes a rush, that suddenly your busy falls and you're not making any money. So it's important also that we look at stuff that when we are busy, that we're still making money when we're very busy, that we're not just throwing money away. We're not busy fools as such. So it's very much focusing on the market and maintaining and growing the market where we think, because what we're finding is our client agencies sometimes are short-staffed. Therefore, the more reliance upon us are what comes later to us. So how do we deal with these problems? Provided clients are happy to pay for that, we can deal with that.
I was just going to say, can you actually charge for those extra services, or are they expected? Is it sort of freebie?
Within reason, yes. No one has a blank check they give us, but I think if we're seen to deliver and keep delivering, I think as a lot of us do, none of us really sign any long-term contracts with clients here. You're only as good as your job, and I think you live and die on your reputation.
Yeah.
So I think it's about maintaining that with your relationships that will drive it forward.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just coming over to you, Graham, next to ask what you were thinking of in terms of profitability.
Yeah, I think it's already been touched on, but being more, I suppose you could call it picky with regards to the jobs that you take on, and not chasing turnover is really important. There is a saying, turnover is vanity and profit sanity, and I think that it's never really been truer. For us, our full service offering has really sort of pushed on. So from design all the way through to installation, I think that is where most of our clients have seen the benefit. And I think that part of the reason for that is that their own teams have been shrunk down as well.
Yeah.
So relying on us to be able to just be the single point of call means that, yes, we've got more stresses and there's more responsibility and so on, but it also means that in a way you can be a little bit leaner because that particular client is touching every point of your business. So it's not that you need to focus on, one particular area to earn your money. It's spread out. So, sometimes you can be a little bit more competitive.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that, Mark? Because obviously, you've got a sort of a different business in terms of the whole partnership working, haven't you, with sort of a wider spread of sort of clients, as it were. Does the same sort of kind of rationale hold true for you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And Graham and Anthony's, what they've said, encompasses exactly what we're about. And we've built a reputation on being good at what we do and delivering on time. And that's been valuable. A lot of the work we do, we don't even price it till after we've done it. So we feel quite fortunate that way. But I do feel now we're sort of getting a little bit more nicked. Overhead is larger, and this keeping the staff. There's a lot of other job opportunities out there now, and the sign trade isn't the best paid, and it's now about how do we retain those staff, pay them well for what they do, and keep them in the industry. So that's sort of where we've been looking. We've got the work, and we feel the work will keep coming. It's just, can we keep the good guys doing the jobs really well? And that's quite important.
Yeah. What about you, Nicole?
We've definitely taken a hit on margins in terms of all the material costs going up, and they go up all the time. So we can't keep changing our prices for our clients, just because a lot of them are used to the prices. They've already put tenders in, they've already used our prices, so we can't pass that on all of the time. So we have been looking at other things internally, just about how we can improve things ourselves and maybe cut costs here and there with things like one of the main reasons for buying the new printer was the one we've replaced. It was using a lot of electricity. This one won't use so much. Inks wise, the inks were a bit cheaper on this one. You don't use as much materials, so we've got less waste. It's also 4 colour instead of 8 colour, but because technology's moved on, that's actually the quality's better than the quality we were getting with 8 colour. So you're not having to buy as much ink because you're not having to buy the light colours. And service contracts a lot cheaper. So just things like that, they can make a difference. And even as daft as it sounds, things like we're putting new offices in at the moment, and we had this like really sort of cool design that would incorporate the factory with the office with high ceilings and industrial feel. But then when we looked at it, it's going to be a lot cheaper to put a suspended ceiling in and heat less area. So just small things like that sometimes will make a difference in your margin. And I do think even daft things like just saying like empty your bins on a morning and then leave it again till the end of the day, then you're not opening the shutters all day. So we've just tried to look at little housekeeping things to try and help out so that we're not having to pass all of the costs on to our customers.
Yeah. I mean, talking about sort of turnover and profitability, I suppose, but do you think that the UK wide format market as a whole is actually expanding now, or do you think it's contracting? I mean, what's your feeling? What are your thoughts on what your customers are saying? Are you looking at new customer bases? I don't know. What do you think about the state of the market in general?
Well, a lot of our customers have put wide format in. So we've got a couple of customers that did spend an awful lot of money with us that don't spend an awful lot of money with us because they put wide format in themselves, especially on the smaller wide format, if that makes sense. But things, like a lot of vinyl printers, so we've got 4 1.6 machines. They're not as busy as they used to be because a lot of signage companies are putting in their own vinyl printers. The price of the printers has come down a lot and the technology's moved on, so it makes sense for them to do that. So I think some signage companies have put bigger machines in as well. I don't know how well that goes for them. I think some customers have found it's been a real benefit, where others, they've not maybe had the print work to justify putting them in. But I do think a lot of other print companies that maybe weren't really specialising in wide format have made investments in bigger machines. So I do think it is growing.
Yeah. What about you, Graham? Do you think the market's growing?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that I think the sector's obviously still recovering from the devastation of the pandemic, so it's hard to gauge because we're all seeing an increase in business because we're just getting back to really, where we were. I think that there is, it's certainly in the retail sector, a bit of a threat from digital marketing. But I honestly think that there'll always be a need for large format graphics, always.
Okay, Anthony.
Well, post-COVID, I think initially we saw a contraction, obviously, because there were a certain amount of companies that, for one reason or another, weren't there afterwards. And we were picking up work from that. Yes, as it's bounced back now, as Nicole said, there are other players coming in there who are buying machines or whatever they are, but less of that. So I would say initially, yes, a contraction. For us, I think there still has been. We found we had work coming from other sources that we wouldn't expect in the past. So that hasn't affected as such. But I think now, yes, as a general growth, I think as pre the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks in, I think that things have been more buoyant with industry. People are spending again. Taps have been turned back on where perhaps they were off. That said, now for Q1, Q2, we are getting some rumours of stuff possibly slowing down slightly with what's going on with the markets at the moment. So that's a wait and see still at the moment, long term on that one. But certainly in the moment, yes, we've seen some growth.
Simon, how are things, do you think, in terms of the size of the market at the minute?
I mean, currently we're in a busy period. If we're not busy now, then there's real problems. And it's as strong as it's been. We've got a quite a good order book through October, November. I still don't think we felt the pinch. I think next year, I think the traditional areas of retail, exhibition, display are going to contract a bit because the war, supplies, all these are going to have an effect long term. But saying that, there are other areas and other sectors out there that are growing. And it's all about finding those sectors, adjusting your business to be able to support those sectors, and then ensuring that you service them well. And that's what we try to do. And that's where we see our growth.
Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, no, I echo that with I think it is just keeping your eyes open. There is opportunities out there. It's just whether you're stuck in your ways or whether you're prepared to sort of flex and bend or start trying something new. I know a lot of you guys will have been doing this a lot longer than us, but with people on the green tip at the moment, we're finding we're printing so much stuff on Cat's board and Zenita board, and that's sort of been a fun side to us. The rain doesn't stop play. Being a sign company, we're often outside doing fascias and flexies. They come with their own headaches. It's been nice to be able to do some nice interior stuff and exhibition stuff again, where we can make it in house and take it, and there's no sort of issues with weather. So that and office interior stuff has been really nice. Wall graphics and just trying to do other things and do them well. But it's just keeping your eyes open, I suppose.
I mean, that sort of brings us on to the next question, really, which is all about, do you see, a potential for growth within your own business? I mean, obviously, that's what everybody's always looking out for. And where do you see that coming from? Is it new markets, new partnerships? Is it, mergers? Is it, how do you see growth sort of arriving on your doorstep? Mark, you was talking about you're always looking out for new opportunities. I mean, in this space, I'm always getting inundated with information from suppliers, etc., about the opportunities for garment printing, the opportunities for textiles, and that is specifically sort of trying to push that end of things. And actually, our Widthwise survey showed that in this professional sort of side of the market, that's not where the growth is. But I don't know. What do you think, Mark? Where do you think the potential for growth is specifically for your own company?
For us, I think just creating those partnerships with companies that are doing good things for the good companies, the big companies. A lot of stage set companies are still doing a lot of work, and it's just offering them new things that aren't bland. We recently
but a new offering effectively.
Yeah, and just making sure we'll be touching base with them a lot more and showing them. We're trying to encourage them to come in and show them the different things we can do, the amount of different types of work we can produce. They very often don't know about, and it's just sort of maybe just inviting them over for a coffee and a tour kind of thing. And we put the Swiss Q in, and we're printing for lots of people on glass, straight onto glass, and they're loving the finish on that. We're now going to upgrade the Canon to do the gloss and the matte print in the one run, again to open up an offering to some interiors companies, again making the job a little bit more fun and a little bit more profitable as opposed to just in mass. And that's just sort of our niche area, really.
Simon, what's your thinking in terms of growth potential?
I think we've kind of all established that looking after our clients is number one and key, that to ensure that if they're happy, they're going to stay with us. And then it's growing areas within those clients, other sectors, other departments, how we have the relationship, and they're the easy ones to grow a little bit more. Then the other markets are then leading to other kinds of work, and possibly not as profitable as graphics. And graphics has probably been, a really profitable industry for a long time now, but that's getting harder. So it's just making sure that you're aware of what else your client does, and can you grow that client, because the relationship's there.
So again, as you say, it's similar to what Mark was saying. It's more about offering new products to an existing client base than going out and looking for a new vertical market from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Swiss Cube is a great machine to put in. Looked at them recently, so obviously Mark's got his eye on where the industry is going, because of the way that machine can add benefit and add value quite easily to your business. We have Canon Arizona. We've done the matte gloss upgrade, Mark, and it's a really good feature. These are all things that you can just turn the dial up a little bit more on what you're already doing.
Anthony, what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, obviously the eco product range is ironic that a lot of eco products are recyclable but not as usable, and are almost more disposable as such. Sorry, when I say disposable, I mean recyclable. So therefore, they need renewing more often. So we found that use of reboards, things like that, where you do more and more of that. Yes, as Simon alluded to, we then have to cut and crease and be able to fold and fabricate with that as well. We've also got sort of aluminium, whereas we're not a build company, so we wouldn't really venture into traditional carpentry. But obviously, where there are aluminium systems, B-Matrix, the likes of that, where people are reusing their stands, and we can offer a frame system where we can do that, which adds a bolt-on, if you like, to an offer already to an existing client, where there's margin to be made, obviously. So I think the whole eco landscape is an important part of the business going forward. We're just looking at closing the circle on that as well to offer that to clients. I think clients that are very eco-aware now is very much coming to the fore as part of Isla. We're very much at the forefront of driving that through the business, from other suppliers as well. And I think exhibition organisers will come on board with that as well. So yes, that's certainly a growth area for us.
Graham?
In the past, we've grown via acquisition. 8 years ago with sort of the merge of KGK and Genix, and then another one just over 2 years ago. Both of those have proved to be worthwhile investments, and albeit growing rapidly in times of uncertainty is a bit of a risky strategy. We are exploring the possibility of 2 new working relationships. But it's really early days, and so I can't really go into any more detail on that. But
the point is, sadly, it also means that there are quite decent businesses up for sale at reasonable prices.
I think that is the case, most definitely. Yeah.
What about over on your side, Nicole?
To be honest, echoing a lot of the guys have said here, just looking after our current clients better, seeing if there's anything new we can offer them. But also, we get, and sometimes, especially when we're busy, we'll get inquiries from new clients, and we'll sort of do that 1 job or 2 jobs for them, and then everything else takes over. And actually, it's just about thinking, when they do inquire, making sure that we're then looking after that new relationship and nurturing that. We've been, because for years now, we've not really gone out and seen anyone because of COVID. We've not been able to, and then everyone was, as you say, in recovery. You maybe had less staff. And you're just busy and you're not really going and visiting your clients. Plus, I think a lot of clients didn't really want you to come and visit because they were in the same situation. So we've really been concentrating the past couple of months on just going out and seeing people again and seeing what they do want, if there is anything different that we can be doing, if there's any areas of the service that we can improve for them. A lot of our work's very fast turnaround. So sometimes we can get lost in just managing day to day. Even this morning, just before I've come on here, I've just had to go and redo the schedule for today because we've just got a few jobs that desperately need fitting in, and I didn't really know how I was going to do them. So that I think sometimes you need to try and take a break from that and just concentrate on nurturing your client relationships a little bit more and getting out to see people and finding out what they want from you and seeing if you can change anything to improve it for them.
Have any of you got, sorry, I broke away from the questions a little bit, because have any of you got sort of a new business development, manager, director, or somebody specifically in that role of looking out for new business? I ask because I've noticed there's been a few sort of news items that I've had this year. This seems to suggest that more companies sort of are going that route. Is that something any of you have taken up this year or recently? No,
we've not had anyone in sales for years. We don't actually have a salesperson anymore, and we haven't had for quite a while, which is probably why we're thinking, actually, let's go out and see our clients and make sure everything is okay. But I think it's difficult because I know we've had in the past, we've like taken somebody on to do sales, and either they've ended up in more of a service role because we've got busy, or it hasn't worked out because the work that they were looking at isn't really what we do. I think because we're trade, it's very, very difficult for us to find somebody that would come in with the right kind of contacts and things for us. So we've kind of just concentrated on customer service more than actually going out and developing new sales.
Okay. You were talking about you've just got a new machine, Nicole. So I suppose that leads us on to the question about investment, whether any of you are making any, and I know you, a lot of you are. If so, where are you making that investment and why? I mean, obviously, it's not all just in technology and kit, is it? Do you want to kick off, Nicole? Because you were, you'd mentioned obviously earlier on the new machine anyway.
Yeah. So we've replaced one of our 5-meter machines, so it isn't. It's not additional, largely because we had a few issues with it, and it's just not as efficient as what we could buy, and things like service contracts were quite high. So we did it when we came back from COVID. Like, we were shut for 6 weeks, and the day we came back from COVID, I said to guys, "Look, we're going to buy a new printer," and they were all like, "No, we're not." But when we actually looked at it, we took 2 printers out and put one in, and that one printer does as much as the 2 did together. So that, although it doesn't feel like it at the time, has saved us money over the years. And again, that's a similar reason for upgrading the printer now. It's a lot better, it's better quality, we can do more with it, but actually in the long run, it should save us money as well. We've been talking about putting new offices in for as long as some people that know me will say, I've known you X amount of years and you've always been talking about these new offices, but we're finally putting them in. And most of the time, the reason we haven't ended up doing it is we bought a new printer and that money's gone on a printer. But we've got to a point where, a bit like Mark was saying about retaining your staff, like, our offices are terrible now and you can't expect people to want to come to work in them. Hence why I'm talking to you from home, because we're really crowded in our offices and there's not much space. So that's another thing we have looked at, is investing in to just make the working environment better for staff. And we've also recently we've spent a bit of money just putting things like a baler in, just to be able to recycle our PVC, which is great for us to be able to do, because similar to what Anthony was saying, a lot of the products we do, because of external signage, we can't use PVC-free alternatives because they don't exist, but then they are up for a long time. But being able to then recycle them, to recycle our own waste, and maybe be able to take waste back from customers as well and recycle that, then that's given a full service rather than putting something up that needs to be replaced more often.
Okay. Mark, what's your take on your whole investment situation? Are you spending?
Yeah. Our biggest problem is space. So we're quite a small company and organically grown. And when we moved into the unit, I think we had 8 or 9 staff, and we've now got like 24. So at times you can come in and they're like bees around honey. So we need some more space. And the minute we've got a bit more space, we'll add a 3.2 Zund to the artillery, because our current finishing tables working 8 to 10 hours a day. So we've got capacity there and want the growth, and the buzz around having new kit is great, but we need space too. And it's just how many jumps can you make without then having to need to turn over more just to pay for the extra space and machinery. So they're the sort of juggles, but they're the exciting part. I think while you're growing and while there's new kit coming in and people are finding the machinery works better, more consistent, the buzz around the place is a lot better too.
Graham, well, I mean, obviously you've been investing anyway, but do you want to just highlight some?
Yeah, we this financial year we took delivery of our ViewTech H5. It made sense to make use of the government super tax incentive, but it also had a benefit in terms of production and quality, and it uses less electricity, so it was sort of a win-win. But in the next 6 to 12 months, there aren't really any other further plans. And I think, as Mark's already said, we're all sitting there nodding when Mark's talking about space, because you have this huge array of space, and then before you know it, you think, oh, we have to play football in here, and then it's like more machines, more people, and then you can't move. Space is always a premium, and that sort of really does stop you from putting in machinery sometimes. It was one of the main reasons actually for us changing the H5. Was that we had 2 ViewTech GS 3250s in one of our locations, and we moved one to our Harlow location and then sold the other one and put in the H5. So whilst we lost production in terms of having 2 machines, the new machine was faster and better anyway, and it gave us a load more space because we didn't need the safe area around the machine. So we gained productivity that way. But we can't, you can't move your machinery and so much all of the time. So it's a difficult one to manage.
Anthony, where do you stand on the whole investment issue?
Well, I mean, yes, we're looking at replacing one of our 5 meters. Obviously, speed, economy. The issue I have with my sales force is making sure that we benefit on the speed, that we don't just swallow it up and just say to clients, you can send our artwork 5 times later than you used to, and then it's of no benefit to anyone. So and also that we've got enough work to feed it as such, because sometimes you get a situation where the machine's so fast that they might be faster than the new input. But so I think that's important. Yeah, I mean, obviously from last year, a situation where with COVID and whatever and loans or whatever, we weren't in a situation we could do that. We now can and will do. But I think it's always with any business. I think it's important you get the right bit of kit at the right time, not just get excited by whatever's on the market and just jump there. So it's whenever we do make an investment, it's very considered to the business that it will work long term as well as such.
Yeah. And what about you, Simon? What's the investment like over with you? Are you spending money on kit, on systems, on people? What are you up to?
Our number one investment is always our staff, and it's not always financial investment. Sometimes it's just time and effort. We spend a lot of time making sure that you've got a happy workforce, trying to come up with ideas that makes it a fun place to be, but then also in education, making sure you're training the younger guys, because they're your future. We were fairly old as a business maybe 10, 12 years ago, so we heavily invested in youth, went through a few government schemes to try out different things, and have brought our average age down considerably. The other areas of investment, you've always got to replace your main production kit, and we're always looking at what that next bit of kit is, and what the right time to invest that money in, and then looking at new areas, ensuring that you kept abreast of what's going on. We've recently put a modest investment just to kind of cover off any work where we might have, Nicola, where we might have subbed it out to a trade business. So it is, it's about, contracting yourself into be able to produce more yourself. And I think that investment sometimes is you don't see the benefits. We invested in a large format 3D printer about 6-7 years ago. And whilst it opened many outdoors for us, it brought us into an industry we didn't know much about. We now have a very buoyant 3D department in as far as drawing and more importantly finishing. So we put in a finishing booth and spray booth. So we're really good at that kind of work as well. So the investment isn't always what you initially see, but what the benefit is in the long run.
Yeah. And we've touched on staff a couple of times just in the chat so far this morning. Can I just ask you sort of an additional question on that front then? Because, we did ask a question in the actual poll about whether recruitment and retention was an issue. And actually, most people said, no, it wasn't a problem. But obviously, we're forever hearing that it is a problem. So I don't know, where do you guys stand on the issue? Mark, what's your thinking on the whole staffing issue? Do you have problems?
Two weeks ago, I'd have said we've mastered it and got it perfect. And as always, you're only really one conversation away from bad news. And a couple of weeks ago, it was really going shiny, and I'd have thought 2 more staff, and I feel like we're complete as a team. And then I've heard a few sort of rumours of, people trying to maybe spread their wings further. But in the main, we sort of have a really good atmosphere, and we've worked hard on the culture and had to make some really big decisions over time. Getting rid of bullies, really is the long and short of it. Tough times, but made the place a lot better. And that was brilliant. But it's just about how you keep that plate spinning, without dangling carrots all the while and making promises, you need to deliver on those. So it's really, really tough, and to give everybody a bit of, you guys have got a lot more staff than I have, but trying to keep a personal touch with them and give them the time of day, have staff and work to do. We feel like we're a good company to work for, but we do work them hard, and it's, like I say, not the hugest pay. So we're working on that.
Cost of living situation, how big an issue is the whole pay situation for you, in the industry? Are you giving 10% pay rises?
Well, we're, to be honest, I am on some of the seniors because they've seen us through thick and thin, and they were all there with their hand up when, we really needed them. But you can't do that with everybody. The maths just says, 30 and 40 grand, annual salary reviews on that many staff is tough to absorb. But equally, you need those guys to do the business. I'd be interested, something that we don't discuss, I suppose we all look at each other as, say, competition out there, but we probably don't stand on each other's toes. It's what is the industry standard for paying your team? It'd be lovely to get a feeler, even if it's not on this forum, but, what is the right price to pay your senior people and your good people, your installers, to make sure that we're paying them right, I'm not sure what that answer is.
Well, no, that's why I brought it up, because, as you say, it's one of those things that everybody's worrying about and thinking about, but doesn't necessarily, we don't get a chance to discuss.
I think it was fueled post-COVID. There was a lot of people disappeared from our industry, went elsewhere, didn't come back, did other things. Suddenly we had this shortage, and that drove prices up, wages up, demands. And we all wanted to retain good staff. The flip side of that, it meant we could get rid of perhaps people we wanted to. There was 2 sides to that. COVID did us a favour. We all might have had some dead wood in the business that actually went, and that was, and weren't too worried about that. So I think that's certainly now for us has calmed down very much. Now we've found the labour market more fluid now, and more people available as such, and less price wage pressure really. There's inflation there. So it's been a strange year for that. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, really, as such.
What about your end, Simon?
Yeah, I don't think staff retention is an issue. Proved by the fact that we've already had one guy done 25 years. We've got 4 more this year that hit 25 years, and 20 and 15s and 10s, which we celebrate, every year. It's just about putting the investment and time in. We're always looking at what staff require. Cost of living, we did a cost of living payment to all our staff when it first hit, just because we appreciate that their cost of living's gone up. As a business, we try and support that. And it's about doing the little things. It's about walking around your business, talking to all the staff and understanding what their own problems are, and genuinely patting them on the back when it's right time, and helping them when they need a bit of help. The rest of it, we do things like pizza days. I cooked 50 pizzas the other day on my poultry little pizza oven, and we had all the staff came in, made their own pizzas. It was a bit of fun. I'm not saying it's going to stop someone leaving for 10 grand, but if you make the workplace a little bit more happy to be in, and people can develop those relationships. We try and get out. We have five-a-side football. We have payday nights out and things like that, just to build the teamwork, because people like working with people that they're friends with. It's making sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the problem with people working from home. I mean, not so much in this sector, but you help out your mates, don't you?
Yeah.
Graham, what's the situation as far as sort of recruitment and retention, etc.?
I think recruiting at a higher level is actually harder than at the lower level, for us anyway at the moment. We're looking at we've started an apprenticeship scheme, because certainly for me, I feel that bringing in young people that are able to be moulded a little bit more is a worthwhile exercise, because it sort of future proofs. I think it was Anthony said that their staffing was pretty old, or maybe it was Simon. I can't quite remember. But bringing in younger people means there's a new generation. You get to find out a lot more about the younger people and what they're interested in and so on. And that also helps from a sustainability point of view, because they're definitely the ones that are driving it. It's not necessarily the dinosaurs like us that are necessarily doing that. So I think that's an all-round positive, and it gives younger people a bit of a chance as well, because you can really only go on attitude with an apprentice, because they've got no CV or back history or anything like that. So that's tough at times, because obviously you need to feel like you're parenting them at the same time, but also you're teaching them something that they may end up staying in for the next few decades or so. So it's quite rewarding as well.
Yeah. What about you, Nicole? What's the situation with? I know it's been difficult at times trying to get the right staff, but how are things now?
Yeah, we've got a history of employing apprentices, but and development through the business. But we had someone leave, I don't know, about 3-4 months ago, and we replaced him with somebody who has some signage experience, not necessarily print experience. Maybe I think he maybe had 3-4 years at a company, and then we're training him, and we've got somebody else that's leaving to go to. They're moving to Sweden, so I can't really stop them from leaving. But again, we're trying to do a similar thing. We're looking for somebody that's maybe got a bit of work experience within either print or signage or just graphics as a whole, just so they've got a little bit of knowledge. Because we've had some really good apprentices, and we've still got most of them, but actually to have them be gone for a day a week sometimes isn't really that beneficial to us, because then they do learn things at college, obviously, but we find they learn more at work. So we'd rather get somebody who isn't on an apprenticeship and just train them internally. That's what we're sort of focusing on more recently. We very rarely get anybody that's got any experience. The area that we're in, that there are loads of signage companies actually where we are, but there's not so many print, and you don't really want to be taking people off your local competitors. Just find it, I don't know, we all try and get on as best we can, and the last thing you want to be doing is taking someone from somewhere else, just because it does cause bad feeling as well. And sometimes the culture's not right when they come into our business. We tend to let people get on with it a lot of the time. We're not a company that go around and sort of say, oh, why are you doing that? And, why are you on your phone? And if work goes out on time, I'm not too bothered what people get up to. As long as they're all working together and there's not like one person doing no work and everybody else has got a cover for them. But you do tend to find that other companies don't work the same way. And if you get someone from another company, it can really, a bit like Mark saying, you have somebody that can upset the whole business, and it's just one person, just because they don't quite fit culturally. So I think that's a really hard thing as well. I think it's so difficult to get somebody that will fit in, because obviously when you interview people, you're wanting them to take the job, so you're saying everything they want to hear and they're saying everything you want to hear, and you don't always necessarily drill down to what you both want. And I'm actually from a recruitment industry, so I spent years doing it, and I still find it really difficult.
I mean, do you think, and I know this is something that we've touched on lots in the past, about the whole, you're talking there obviously about skilled operators, etc. But, if we want the type of people to come into the print sector, maybe with the IT skills or the social media skills, those kinds of people. We've had this discussion before about, does print to an extent need to almost rebrand itself as a different kind of sort of employment agency, as it were, than saying we print? Because I think people who aren't already in print have no idea of what an actual print company today does, how it operates. I think they think it's somebody with inky fingers standing at, a dirty, machine, 12 hours a day. And that's what print is now. How do we get those IT people? How do we get those, marketing people in that we need now? Do we need to rebrand? I don't know. Is it something that the sector as a whole needs to take on board and do something about? Any thoughts? What's your thinking, Mark?
Yeah, I've got a bit to say about that, because I think we sort of fall below. If somebody went to uni and done graphic design, they don't really think I'll go in the sign market where they could do, create things on a daily basis, but maybe just don't get all week to design them. We just sort of don't really put ourselves out there as that sort of creative, fun place to work. It's creative every day. The installers are finishing something and getting rewarded. I think maybe Yanamai's done it with the wrap industry, if you know what I mean, just sent a thing out there. Then a lot of people wanted to become vehicle wrappers, which is actually quite difficult. But the rest of the trade, the wall graphic installs, a lot of the exhibition stuff, you're starting your day with a pile of stuff and you're finishing the day with something to take a picture of. It's a good, fun trade to be in. And it's about trying to send that message out there to try and draw people into this trade. But it also will have to come where it's then, lucrative enough for those people, I think. But yeah, I do agree with you. Do people have a perception of the sign trade as a manufacturing industry and in a dirty workshop, or do they look at it as the fun, pretty stuff that makes a difference?
What's your thinking, Sam? I'll just do a quick sort of round robin. Do you think we need to do something to change how people perceive the industry?
I don't think there's been a lot of change over the years. If I think back to why I got into the graphic industry, it's because someone mentioned there was a job available and I didn't know what to do, so I went for it. And if I look at most of the younger members of the team that join us without the experience, they've hit a path in their lives where they're not sure what they want to do. They come here, they have a bit of fun, they start earning money, they see a potential career, and that's how we're building. So we work with local schools and colleges, and I've now found that the more you increase the youth that's in the business, the more you're open to the youth in the area. So friends will suddenly say, can I come and help, and things like that. As an industry, how we sell ourselves, we're so diverse. We're out in every high street. Excuse me. I'm not sure how more we can do. We are, advertising ourselves every single day in what we do and what we produce. It's in the high street, and if you want an advert, you just mention to someone, go and look in the high street and see what's out there. Signs, outdoor signs, internal point of sale, and everything else to boot. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what we can do as an industry as such.
What do you think, Anthony?
Well, so we're not an obvious industry, are we? We're a sort of subsection of something else. Absolutely. We're sort of marketing and advertising. People think advertising, I think hoardings, billboards, or telly. So we sit somewhere in like a lot of industries. That are things that if you went to a dinner party, so what do? You have to explain what you do, don't you? It's not that obvious. I'm not a bus driver or a surgeon or it's not that obvious to explain what we do sometimes. So what we have found, I think we've had COVID, we've had Brexit. our sort of Eastern European tap has been left. We've been recruiting younger people as well. What we have found, we found an issue with younger people having a work ethic. When suddenly when there's overtime comes on, oh, hang on, I'm still living at home with mum and dad. I don't need the money. I've got disposable income. So we have to temper really what we're finding when, as a team, we're asking people to work overtime. And as Nicole said, you interview these people, you tell them what they want to hear, they tell you what they want to hear. It's not until you actually have them for real that you actually find out where their limits are on people and where you can take them as such. So it's a bit of a knife edge, really, a double-edged sword, really, as to employing younger people and whatever. Yes, we want to do that. And we are committed to that, but we just have to be careful what sort of person. And as you say, they've got to fit into the culture that you've got in the business, because it can be cancerous. That horrible. It's something, you've got the wrong person in there, winding people up, doing the wrong thing, shirking, because it's very much a team effort getting work out, I think, in the business. If someone's not pulling their weight, that has a monumental effect, I think, on morale across, because most of us have got open plan factories. It's not. Yes, there is a design department, but essentially everyone knows what everyone else is doing. If someone's not pulling their weight, you can't really hide in it. We're not big enough to companies to do that.
And what do you think?
Can I just interject one thing there? I have, and I'm sure you guys all look at this. When you take on a young person, you're not going to get that perfect employee. Invest some time in them. Make sure, I've got 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that we could have just got rid of, and they've all got their own personal problems, some more complicated than I think we ever had to deal with. And if you invest your time, let a little bit of rope slide, make sure that you understand why the problem's there. I think what you end up with, the guys that we could have got rid of very early on are here now, and they're really benefiting the business. So it is tough. And I know there are certain situations with certain people, but if you're going to employ young people, you're going to employ issues. And it's about adapting yourself to help them through that, because you get such a rewarding factor at the end of it when you've got a really beneficial person in your business.
I just come back to that, Simon. Yes, we had. I agree that we've hit that with a couple of people, and we persevered and got through that, as you say, Simon. But I think it's recognising perhaps where there's something that may an external factor that might be drug related or something like that, or background that no matter, we're not psychologists here, that we can recover and sort and get through that you've got to protect the business as well. So I think it's making a case by case call on these youngsters as to what you persevere with and what you can't as such for the business.
Thank you. Sorry, Graham, I was just going to let you finish off on the sort of, are we managing to recruit the right people at the right level? Have we got the right image?
I think that I agreed with Simon's last comment entirely, in that you really need to, with younger people, you really need to invest a lot of time in order to be able to mould them. A lot you can tell from the interview, but not everything. We do a thing called Thomas profiling within our interview. It's a bit of a psychometric test, I suppose you could call it, in that you pick certain words within these blocks of words, and then magically it produces a profile that so far every single person that's done the test, both new staff and existing, they've all 100% agreed with. But it also means that you can make sure that you're putting people in the right type of team, that certain personalities just clash no matter what, but they are really good at what they do. So knowing a little bit about their background and how people tick is a way in which you might be able to avoid some of those issues. But also you might not then, if you're looking to recruit for person A, as somebody comes in, their whole sort of ethos might not necessarily work in that area. So it may help you to make a decision.
I'm just going to move on to sort of more of an external issue, really, which is looking at your own customers now. How is their mood? How are they feeling, do you think? Are they optimistic? Are they talking to you? Do they sound quite upbeat about the future and going into next year and beyond? If I start with you, Graham, just where you left off, what's your customers' mood?
I think that having a diverse client base is key, because some are more positive than others. It's a really mixed bag. Our clients within exhibition and events are busier than ever, and certain quieter periods of the time, they're now booking exhibitions in because they're looking to catch up and so on. So that's really good. You've got the travel and so on, and different cultures from different areas of Europe and so on, and their take on what COVID's going to be like in the winter and so on. And there's just so many different rules. So again, it's a real mixed bag. But retail, again, you could say, talking to one customer, they're looking to spend more. Another one is looking to throttle back a little bit. So that it's a real tough one. But a growing area for us is office and commercial interior graphics. And I think that's partly driven by trying to entice people who are working from home back into the office. So pretty looking offices are a nicer thing to work in than plain blank white walls and so on. So I think that's, I suppose, an area of growth that most people will be able to encroach into.
What about you, Anthony? What kind of mood are your customers in?
I agree with Graham. It's mixed. We just had an inquiry this week for a lavish budget for a children's party for a major bank. Now, who would be spending on a children's party? Whatever. So that's a project that's coming. So that reflect. But on the other side, they're talking about possibly reining back on a couple of projects in Q1, Q2 next year. So, I think macro forces are going to affect us. Whatever you say, what's going on at the moment with the government will affect us. I think going forward on that. So it's a mixed bag. But essentially, events will still happen. We've come out of COVID on that. Retail, yes, is more balanced. I think it's hard to predict that far ahead at the moment with what's happening at Westminster. But certainly it's better than last year. We're probably not going to see. Would we see growth next year? Possibly not.
Okay. What about you, Simon? How are your customers?
I don't have a direct contact as such with customers, so I kind of take mine ad hocly from project managers, a couple of sales guys we've got out there. Our current customers that we're looking after and loving are that their mood's good. They definitely want to buy into a business that's going to support them as much as they can. I think the skill base has been taken out of the client as such. So, project management's really important, understanding how the work's going to go through the business. And then again, just touching back where I was before, it's about finding that one area of the business that you're already looking after, where you already have the contact, how to grow that. And certainly we've gone into areas that we wouldn't expect to, and that's looking good for next year.
Well,
there are sectors out there growing.
I was going to say, it's whether your customers are optimistic. I mean, obviously you are, but are they? I presume you finding a mixed bag, as Anthony and Graham have.
Yeah, new business is hard to find. That's because as businesses, we're all looking after our clients really well. So I wouldn't say that we get a new client through the door every week, but as far as the clients we have and the ones we're looking after, it's looking okay.
Mark, are your customers optimistic? Are they miserable? Are they worried?
I think some of our bigger customers are positive and looking forward, and they're looking at the tweaks and the changes, which means work for us. So that's really good. Lots of the smaller customers that come in very much are listening to the news and seeing what we're seeing. So there's doom and gloom ahead and, muddy waters. So it is exactly like that. So we have to sort of just ride all of the discussions but I always look at pessimistically on the start of the new year coming up and prefer to be pleasantly surprised when it takes off, as opposed to, I know that sounds a little bit sketchy. I do my numbers, but it's always that run into Christmas is a short month. January, February is cold and no one wants to be there, and you're not sure if the year's going to take off, and the switch comes on in March. That seems to be the rule. But that's how we sort of unprofessionally look at it. But we've got to hope it's okay. And graphics companies seem in a recession to often get busy because people need to push and promote. And those with the bigger money still spend it, and we have to hope that continues. Nicole, it's slightly different for you with you being a trade company. Obviously, I mean, your customers to an extent are the rest of the print sector. So
we're very similar to Mark, to be honest. I was just laughing when he was saying how he forecasts, because we're the same. It's always like we get back after Christmas and we're like, oh my God, this is dire. This is just going to be such a bad year. And then we really start focus on trying to contact customers and do some sales. And then we get too busy to do what we started. And it happens to us every year. It's every year about February. We're like, right, we need to send this out, do this. I mean, I started at the beginning of this year, I started sending sample packs out. I've got about 100 left to do. So that's about half of the ones that we send out overall, because we get busy and then we don't end up following through on our sales, which maybe that's why we maybe do need a salesperson. I don't know. But we're very we're really similar to you. In March, it starts to get better and you think, oh my God, thank God, because we don't really have an order book, but we send stuff out. I've done my schedule for next week, but that's unusual, and I don't like to have done my schedule for next week because it means I'm struggling to fit jobs in. But it's only because we're a printer down and putting a new one in. But talking to our clients, they're very mixed, very, very mixed. Some of them are like ridiculously busy, don't know how they're going to get work out, and some of them are like, we just don't have anything in, we just don't know what's going on. So I suppose it depends on their clients, because a lot of different signage companies, exhibition companies, they focus on different markets, don't they? So I suppose it depends on what their clients are doing. Where our clients, we are finding a very mixed bag. Some of them are really positive about the future, some of them are expanding, and others are saying that they're going to have to start cutting back on staff because they don't have the work for them.
I mean, what is your key concern going forward? And are you still optimistic about the next year ahead or ever, given those concerns? I mean, Nicole, you might as well kick off on that one. What are your key concerns going into 2023?
For us, it is that some customers are doing, like Simon said, they're bringing more print in-house, which, because we're trade, that affects us. Also, I think for the energy prices, there's a lot of things for our customers, and they're struggling. We're similar to you, Anthony. We're capped for another couple of years, but it is affecting material prices. But then it's also affecting our customers, and you've got some customers that are really busy at the moment. But you wonder, are they still going to be around once everything sort of catches up with them and hits? Because we have seen a couple of decent sized companies that have been well established that have gone bust on us this year. So you do think there might be more of that coming in the future, because even if clients are busy, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're making any money being busy. So for us, I think it's just the economy is a big concern, but there's nothing we can really do about that. So it's just a case of keep looking after your customers and just keep getting jobs out, and just make sure that that you are making some money on what you're doing and carrying on, I suppose.
What's your major concern, Graham? Or concern?
As Nicole said, rising costs are always going to be a concern. Inflation and the cost of living is also a concern, because you need to be able to look after your staff, and it tends to be the production workers that suffer the most, because they're the ones that are in the office every day, have no alternative but to come in, and they tend to be towards the lower end of the pay scale. So making sure that they can afford to come to work, is is a concern. So and that obviously spirals and increases the operating costs of the business, and it's all very much out of our control. So that's the main concern, isn't it? Not being in control is not an area that I feel comfortable.
Yeah. Anthony.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit of uncertainty everywhere in the economy, isn't it? That's just feeding through the business. Business needs certainty at the moment, and we haven't got that. So we couldn't predict too far. Yes, we've made that investment. We can every year we can plug in certain events we know are coming up next year. There are ones, but beyond that, it's really just maintaining our and growing our existing clients that we are. There will be a certain amount of new business we will get as well. We always factor that in. We've got a new MI system to make ourselves more streamlined in what we're doing and save money there. Because we're looking at internal efficiencies very much of the business, as well as to factor the increase in material costs and whatever. So it's looking internally at the business as well as externally at the moment, very much so.
Mark?
Yeah, I suppose the biggest thing when I was talking to the SMT in that last few weeks has been just making sure we get paid. It's okay being busy. It's okay having nice work. We just got to make sure that people we're doing work with do pay the bills and pay them on time. People have really been trying to stretch their luck a little bit, and we feel we do a very, very good job. We feel that being paid in a similar vein would be nice. And just trying to make sure people know that part of our values is, we service and look after you well, just pay us fairly, and, trying to get that message out there and making sure that we do get paid is, very important, or we could sink at the hands of others who have just been sort of overspending. So, but yeah, that's probably my biggest concern, is making sure we get paid for the hard work we do.
Simon?
To add what everyone said, I suppose supply chain is a big threat. Sure, and our suppliers are, they've got to increase their prices. They're suffering everything that we as businesses are suffering too. But what's more important than the price is that we have the raw materials that we need to produce graphics on. There's already a reduction in wood, and fuels are proving hard to get to in major industry. Russia did supply Europe with 30-40% of things as supply and things like that. We're now having to go outside. Yes, we spend a bit more money on it, but we're looking at other avenues in where we can get our raw materials, and it is suppliers just need to make sure that they secure that throughout, because without wood, without paper, without plastic, we can't produce work and can't make revenue.
Well, you've seen very nicely into the next question, Simon, actually, which was all about, can suppliers do more to help providers, in terms of the whole supply chain issue? I don't know. Should they be doing more? What can they do? Simon, do you want to kick off?
I think supply chain is very important. Price is a factor, but as a business, we have to appreciate that it's going to go up. How we pass that to the client, how we increase our own efficiencies and margins to narrow that as much as possible is important. Lots of suppliers are looking at eco materials and putting a lot of more information out there. Been a couple of trade days recently where I've learned new products, seeing how they can affect our business. So it's ensuring they can supply, and when we're asking for sample materials, ensuring that the backup is there, so that when we go to the bigger jobs, that we're able to then produce the work on the supplies that they've sampled.
Mark, do you think suppliers can do any more to help you? To help the industry?
I feel we're quite lucky, being smaller than you guys. We rely on the materials, but we're not taking maybe quite as much as you guys are. We've learned to buy a little bit more, buy the pallets and buy bulk and store it for ourselves. But we feel quite lucky that we've made good bonds and relationships. So we seem to be quite high up the pecking order when we ask for stuff. but that's obviously been a problem the last few years. We don't want the sort of a Wolf of Wall Street style buying perspex like we did again a few years ago, where you're all sort of bidding and bartering. But we just need to make good partnerships with our suppliers and keep it going.
Nicole, what do you think about the whole supply chain situation? Can suppliers do more?
I think it's very difficult for them to do more. I mean, a lot of our suppliers are running out of material that we use regularly. You know, they're as upset as we are about it, because we're not able to use the material we want to, so we may be having to look at alternatives. But then we generally try to be pretty loyal to the suppliers we use, but actually we've had to use suppliers that we don't usually use. Now, if the ones that we did usually use could help us, they would be helping us. You know, they don't want to lose that business. I know they are just finding it difficult to get the materials in themselves, and they've got much longer lead times now as well. In terms of them getting materials in, plus for them to forecast what we're doing is very difficult for them to be able to buy materials in, but they're actually needing to do that several months in advance sometimes. So, you know, I think they're doing their best, and I don't think they can. You know, if they could do any more, they would be doing it. Is my thoughts on it.
What do you think, Graham?
For us, we're trying to sort of put pressure on our suppliers to give us some more carbon footprint information. As a business, we've been carbon neutral for scopes 1 and 2 for 4 years now. So that's the easy part. Scope 3 is where 90% of the carbon for the business hides effectively. And I say hides because you actually have to go out and find it. And so working with our suppliers, we're looking to try and gain more knowledge on the materials that we're using and the associated carbon footprint, because you may choose a certain material because it's recyclable or sustainable, but it could come from China, for instance, in which case the carbon footprint associated with it doesn't necessarily make it as green as everyone says. So having that information is quite key, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I've tried to get information from the hardware suppliers as well about, where do you source your parts, all of that kind of stuff. If you're talking about a greener printer and, it might use less energy or whatever, but if you're bringing parts in from all over the world to make it in the first place, it's that conversation. Anthony, what's your feeling with this?
I think this is where our procurement manager earns his corn. It's about relationships, historic relationships, us, how we pay them, how we work through COVID and then Brexit, and then giving them as much information as Simon said about what our future requirements will be as well, so they can stockpile. It's talking about consignment stock. So I think it's we also then garner those suppliers that are bringing information, bringing new products to us as well, and are happy to look at new revenue streams for us, of seeing understanding where we are going as a business, and say, okay, we don't just want to supply you that, we can probably supply X and Y, and let's look at the eco environment, what we can do there as well. So that, because I think we all don't want multifarious suppliers in our business. We'd rather have one or two that we don't become reliant upon, but that obviously when it comes to payment structures and things like that, we have some sort of history with them as such, and they rely upon us, we rely upon them, and they will deliver. Like they may do free collection or free recycling. I think so. You build that relationship with long-term suppliers. I think for a while, yes, they have been holding back on price rises. Similarly, no one wants a supplier that every week is throwing you with a price increase and possibly every increase on. They are holding back, and I think we are grateful that they are only doing it as and when they need to, because I think they appreciate they don't want to lose business, so it's a balancing act. But I think it's about communication with them, really, and understanding us understanding what's available if there is an issue in the future. Dive on the things like that, where it comes from as well. As you say, it's part of the eco process. Yes, how recyclable it is, but agree, yes, where's it coming from in the first place? So, and closing the circle there.
I mean, I think as a sector, we're certainly greening up. We've definitely made great strides over the last few years. But I mean, the poll showed when we did it, it's very difficult to measure in this sector, isn't it? In terms of just how sustainable a sector can we be? I mean, if I just said, what do you think is the biggest sort of hurdle, if you like, towards us becoming greener than we are now. What do you think it is? What do you think it is, Nicole? I mean, we've talked about, trying to get industry-wide recycling programs going and all the rest of it. What needs to happen now to make us a greener sector?
I think a lot of it is about things being recycled once they've gone to the end user, because it's all well and good using something that you're able to recycle, but then if it's just getting put in a bin at the end of it, it doesn't matter. It's just still getting put in a bin at the end of it. But that's it's very difficult to do, especially if, like for us, we're giving it to somebody else who's giving it to someone else who's maybe even giving it to someone else you don't know. So I think I think there's been a lot of investment in products that can be recycled, and there's also been a lot of investment in trying to recycle products that perhaps weren't recycled previously. For us, when we do backlit flex faces, that has to be on PVC. There's nothing else you can use. But now we've managed, through FESPA's recycling program, we've managed to find a couple of outlets that will take the PVC from us, and I've literally been trying to do that since I started 11 years ago. But we're recycling our waste, but then it's not necessarily what's going up on a building isn't necessarily then being recycled at the end of its life. But I think that's the same with some products that are PVC free and are actually more environmentally friendly. They're still going into landfill, and they could not be going into landfill. They could be getting recycled, but it's a massive project. So it's kind of changing everybody's perceptions. And I do think some of the, like the bigger retailers and things, they're all looking into that kind of thing. But it's not, I don't see as much of it. I'm not getting that many of my clients asking me, could you take this waste back? So maybe they're doing it themselves. I don't know. But actually, from talking to some of them, they're not, because they're not even aware that they can recycle it. So it's not even just our industry. Really, it's about educating everybody throughout the full life cycle. Like, Graham's saying, he's obviously done a lot of work at his company to make sure that they're carbon neutral, but now he's having to try and make sure that everybody else is carbon neutral to be able to do that. And it's for one person or one company, it's very difficult to do.
What is your take on that, Graham? Where do we go from here?
I think there's a lack of infrastructure in the UK in terms of the recyclability. So a lot of the PVC-free materials that are deemed as recyclable can't actually be recycled in the UK. They have to be shipped over to Europe in order to be able to be recycled, which, if you're talking about self-adhesive products, for instance, that tend to volume up but don't weigh a lot, that's not really the answer, because the footprint to send it over to Spain, for instance, to be recycled, it negates the transporting it over there to be recycled. So I think that we've got a long way to go in the UK to catch up with the rest of Europe, because we're an island effectively. So it is a little bit more difficult. We're also lacking in space and so on, so that becomes more of an issue. But I think that for me, cardboard and paper-based products are quite key to our offering, mainly because everyone knows exactly what they have to do with that. There's no further education, because you look at a piece of cardboard, and even though we know it as twin wall, BC flute, all the technical terms, Joe Soap just effectively says, that's a bit of cardboard, I put that in the cardboard waste recycling, and we've already got that closed loop recycling. And cardboard and paper can be recycled up to 8 times anyway. So it's a great material. The PVC-free materials and the like that are out there, I think, are great. But as Anthony said, by and large, they don't perform as well as some of the PVC-based materials. And we all know, peeling bits of vinyl and so on doesn't look great, and you can't really use the excuse, well, it's recyclable. The PVC one wouldn't do that. It's a problem.
Yeah. What do you think, Anthony? Where's the sticking point now?
Well, I'm involved with the Isla Forum, so we talk a lot on this about getting end users and exhibition organisers, things like that, to get on board as well. We've, in the last 4 weeks, have just hopefully cracked the UK circle on recycling PVC products in the UK commercially viably, as well as recycled products as well. So still haven't signed a deal on that one, but we hopefully can do that. But it's, again, we've had to invest here in hoppers, different areas. So our guys, as Graham said earlier, how it's down to our staff then to recycle stuff, split stuff out correctly into what is what. We're now finding suppliers that will take bundles of a mix of materials and take that away commercially viably for us as well. So we're looking to do that. But that's stuff that we control, that's stuff that we're pulling out of site. If you know, what as Nicole said earlier, there's stuff that goes to site that we never see again, that may sit on a wall for 7 years rather than a 2-day show. So how do you control that? So it's not just about what we can only control what we bring back here. Similarly, if there's a cost to the business, would the client pay for that? And it's making sure that we don't sully off with this free, because that again affects our margin. So I think it's assessing what we're going to do, what cost it's going to be and what we're going to as an offer to recycle, because we can't just absorb it at the moment. You know, that there's an economic side to this as well.
So I was just going to you, Marcus. Obviously, with the vehicle wraps and things, I mean, I presume a lot of that isn't recyclable. Am I wrong? Or?
No. A lot of it just, we've got several waste bins. A lot of it is for landfill, and then there's obviously the recycling side, and we'd like to put it somewhere else, but there's just not the mass. And it's just, how do we come together? We need a couple of things, and one's education for those who know what to put where. Just as once upon a time we had 1 bin, we now have 3 at home. We all now get used to that, and you wouldn't be without your food waste bin now. It's much better. So we need to get that education into the business sector, but then we really need some really clever people to come up with ways of reusing that product and putting that and making a business out of it. But what that is, I don't know. I'm just a sign maker. So,
Simon, what's your thinking on the whole issue of sustainability? Is it where are the sticking points now?
The first one's staying in the conversation. Make sure that with the communication from supplier and trade groups that are sharing it around. For example, I had a guy come in to look at everything we produced to see how we could recycle. He commented, we have a big roll-in, roll-out skip that comes in, gets filled up almost weekly. And he said the bare minimum you can do as a business is don't put it into landfill. It can go to fuel waste for fuel. Yeah. So they burn it and produce fuel from it. That's the bare minimum, which we were already doing, just didn't know it. So it's looking at those areas. We've recently, one client wanted to close loop all the recycling on their CADA TFS frame graphics. So we've just done that again, where they will collect them after the promotion, and then that will go to recycling. It's a modest cost, which we passed on to the client, not directly, indirectly, to cover it. So it's just about staying in the conversation and sharing it across trade organisations.
And can I ask you there about, you were just saying there about the pricing, it wasn't passed on directly, it was indirectly. If sustainability is such sort of a hot topic of conversation, is it still a case of, people will talk about it, but they're not willing to pay for it?
No, I think the client, the conscious clients are open to entertaining a conversation about how it's paid for. Again, all back to the relationship that you have with the client, how much you love them, and how much you're able to have that conversation with them. The client that we're doing it for came to us and said, we do not want to produce this as waste. So it's an easy conversation. It's an open-ended conversation. And as far as we just had to find the solution. Yeah,
but they wouldn't pay for that directly, you were saying?
No, we don't charge them directly. It's added value to the business. It's about loving your client. We found a solution. When I say we're not charging directly, we're covering the cost.
No, I'm just saying though. Sorry, I'm maybe I've got the wrong end of the tail, but I'm just thinking, if they're coming to you and saying, we want this solution, we want to be more sustainable, why can we not as an industry be more transparent and say, well, in that case, there's a cost associated with it and this is the cost? Can we not do that?
Yes, there is an education.
We're all looking at ways we can add value to our clients.
Okay. Did anybody else, Anthony, did you want to comment on?
We had a pull out the other week at Excel. There was a main contractor said, "Oh, can your guys take away this stuff rather than us because we'll just chuck it?" It was 1,000 meters of blackback. I said, "Yes, but we don't chuck it, and there's a cost to it because we bale it. So I have to have labour, and they paid us £900,000 in labour to bale it, and they accepted it. Okay, but it was a conversation I had to have. Now someone else might say, because we can't just bring it away. We don't chuck it. Okay, I understand that." All right, so we
what I was making is if they want us to provide a green service,
yes,
expect us to charge for it and be transparent in charging.
Yes, very, very much so. As I said, that's why I said that there is a cost that you must be charged because there is a labour involved in it in bringing stuff back, in baling it, sorting it, and whatever. It's not suddenly if we didn't, then we've suddenly got a whole cost base in the business that we didn't have before. So what's the point? Yes, we all want to help save the planet, of course we do, but there is a cost to it. And I think if businesses aren't charities, they make a margin on a job, they have to factor it in. They either do it at the beginning of the project. And we're having conversation now where we have a line in our quotations that says, if you want to recycle, that will cost you X.
Okay.
If you don't have it, it's a choice. You either pick that option or you don't. But I don't think it's something willy-nilly we can suddenly then just start offering because companies, we can't afford that on our margin.
Okay, Graham, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to add something really small, and it's something that we could all do that doesn't actually cost anyone anything. And that's an agreement with the client to print in a small, tiny area that might not even be visible, is what the material is and whether it can be recycled, and if it can, where it sort of needs to go. So if it's PVC free or so on, why not? For years we've got cans of drink that have got a recyclable logo on it, and then we knew the ones that were recyclable going back a few years went in one bin, and the ones that didn't have that logo on it went in a different one. So we're in a similar situation with a lot of our materials, especially when we're going into an environment that means we're taking out somebody else's graphics and putting the new campaign in, for instance. We don't know what we're taking out. It all ends up going back. And as Simon said, as the smallest part of it, it would get burnt for fuel. But if we knew what it was, then you could segregate that waste and ensure that you've got a little bit of an easier journey, I suppose, on the recycling chain.
I suppose part of the problem, as far as I understand it, I might be completely wrong here, is that, the problem is the media might be recyclable, but it isn't necessarily recyclable depending what inks you've used, whatever you've done with it, once it's an actual product. So I suppose that confuses the issue. But can I just ask you, I might as well start off with you, Nicole, and we'll wrap it up because I've taken up a lot of your time. But sort of one of those questions that we always have to ask at these kind of round table discussions is, what do you think the sector will look like in 5 years' time? And I mean, I know it's difficult to know what it'll look like in 5 months' time at the minute, but can you
know what it looks like next week, to be honest?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, what do you think the white home print sector will look like, and will you be in it? Will your business be in it still, do you think? From a, is it a sustainable sector?
Yeah, well, I hope so, because that's all our business does. So if it's not, then no, we won't be in it, because that's all we do. But I think it is a sustainable sector. I do think, like a couple of guys said, digital advertising is something that we need to look at, especially in the signage market. But you can see when you go into, like, we've got Asda very near to where I work, and they've actually started to put a couple of digital frames in near some of the clothing, but then it's alongside campaigns that get changed regularly that are printed. So, and I've actually seen a couple of signs where they've got a digital sign outside of the building as well as a flex face sign next to it. So I think it will still have a place, and I don't think digital will take over.
Yeah. Graham, what do you think? How will the sector look?
I agree with Nicole. I'd like to hope as well that there's more sustainable and recyclable materials, and we all know what to do with them. But you know, that's sort of as far as I can see into the future, unfortunately.
Yeah, Anthony, will the sector be different?
I think as long as we keep a pace with the eco environment with that offer, and we keep close to our clients to what we offer, I think there will always be a place for large format. Yes, the digital market will occupy some space, but I think there will always be an actual super wide format requirement around globally somewhere. And in the UK, I think, you know, whether there's a attraction or the economy's booming or whatever, I think, as you say, sometimes in a recession, people need to market their way out of it. So I think it's just staying relevant.
Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to go positive, be hopeful, and say, yeah, it should be good. You know, the years fly by very quickly, is what I'd say. You know, the months and the years, they disappear. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with a positive, and I'll be here and we'll all be doing well.
And Simon, you can wrap up for us.
Absolutely. There's far too many people and families that invested in the industry for it to go away. As long as people are selling stuff, they'll need to advertise it. Digital screens always need to be clad, and you know that there are areas that we can still retain. Whatever's been thrown at us, pandemic, then the home market became huge. You know, after the pandemic, screens became huge. We as businesses should always adapt, be able to be agile enough to manoeuvre into the right sector and just make sure we're aware of what's out there. We're very positive.
Well, thank you. I mean, to be honest, that's exactly saying now what people were saying back in January from the perspective of there is optimism, despite, you know, being quite difficult times in the UK economy and landscape in general. So I really appreciate all of your time, everyone, for joining me. That's great. There'll be a write-up on this in the December issue of Image Reports, and of course, this will be online. But in the meantime, if anybody hasn't seen the Widthwise report this year, it can be downloaded from the website. So thank you all for your time, and hopefully I'll be talking to you all again same time next year. So thanks again. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.